Hello everyone, welcome to Quick Guides. This one's going to be on fissile fuel and how to make it. So this is all the bits you need. The first thing you're going to need is some sort of pump to get some water. You need an electrolytic separator, pressurized reaction chamber, chemical oxidizer, chemical infuser, rotary condensator. We also need another chemical infuser and another one later on. You need a chemical dissolution chamber, another chemical oxidizer, and the enrichment chamber, along with the isotopic centrifuge. I apologize if I get any of the names wrong in this. But yeah, this is all the things you need right here to start with coal, uranium, and fluorite, and some water from the electric pump, and finish with some fissile fuel right here. Fissile fuel is used in a fission reactor, and it will produce both steam and nuclear waste. Or if you're going to feed it sodium, you can get superheated sodium and nuclear waste. So it's one fissile fuel to every one nuclear waste, which is needed for a lot of things in the later stages of Mekanism. So, to just give a quick shout out to a couple of the bits that will be needed later on, but aren't going to be included in this guide. That is the quantum entangler porters. Actually, we do need these two things. I'll show you how these are used with the pump in a second. But the quantum entangler porters, you can actually put the fissile fuel in the quantum entangler porters. You won't be able to do that with the nuclear waste later, but you can do it with this setup here for the fissile fuel. So just to go over everything, right here I've got a 1 square of water. In my previous guide I was using a 2x2 square of water and a pump above it. This guide we're going to use a slab, so there's actually a slab right here which is waterlogged, and the electric pump does actually see that as an infinite source, so it will pull from that. Right now I'm using creative energy. You could use my previous quick guides of cheap power with Mekanism and somehow get that power over here, again using quantum entangler porters or other means, wires for example, cables. But we're just going to stick with the creative energy cube right here. Everything is fed off of a creative energy cube under here using the ultimate universal pipes. So to get into it, the first thing you're going to need is an electrolytic separator to produce oxygen, and you need to get water into the electrolytic separator, and for that I'm using the Mekanism ultimate pipes from the pump. You could use a sink, for example, if a sink is in the pack you're playing. But I'm using the pump for now just to show you can use it. So that will get you the oxygen, which will be fed straight into a pressurized reaction chamber. And the pressurized reaction chamber will take some coal. In this case, I'm using blocks of coal. But you can use regular coal as well, like I said at the beginning. You can just chuck a coal in here. That will produce you some sulfur. The sulfur will be then fed into the chemical oxidizer, which turns it into, sulfur turns into sulfur dioxide. The chemical infuser right here will take oxygen and sulfur dioxide and turn it into sulfur trioxide. This one here is just producing water vapor, and the sulfur trioxide and water vapor turns into sulfuric acid in another chemical infuser. So that's using the rotary condensator with some water in it to turn it into water vapor, like you can see right there. That is currently filling up the pressurized tube right now. The trioxide and the water vapor, sulfuric acid and fluorite, which is the second component you're going to need, will turn the sulfuric acid and the fluorite into hydrofluoric acid. You then can push that hydrofluoric acid out into the chemical infuser, and with uranium oxide you will create some uranium hexafluoride. To create the uranium oxide, you are going to need a chemical oxidizer, and the chemical oxidizer takes yellow cake uranium, and you can get yellow cake uranium from a regular uranium ingot in an enrichment chamber, and that will create you yellow cake, and you feed the yellow cake into the chemical oxidizer. From there, the uranium hexafluoride you can put in an isotropic centrifuge that will convert the uranium hexafluoride into fissile fuel, and that is how you can create fissile fuel right there. One thing you might find quite useful is to have an oxygen and a hydrogen quantum entangler porter, so you can actually replace the electrolytic separators on this line here. So this 2x2 right here will be replaced, and we can just have electrolytic separator right there. You can also use a quantum entangler porter for water and feed all the things that need water using entangler porters. The entire first section right here is to produce some sulfur dust. There is other ways of creating sulfur dust, which I will cover right now. With the chemical injection chamber, another machine from Mekanism, you can use salt and gunpowder and produce some sulfur dust. It does use quite a lot of salt, so you've got to keep that in mind, because right now it is finished, and that was a whole stack of salt right there. But you do get the sulfur dust. To produce the salt, you could use a chemical crystallizer and some gaseous brine. The thermal evaporation plant is a multi-block structure which can turn water into brine, and brine you can then turn into sulfur, as we just saw. So this one right here is 18 blocks tall with a couple of solars on top. This is not the most efficient way, but there's loads of guides out there on the most efficient thermal evaporation plant. So this one here is fully formed though, and we've got 1000 millibuckets of brine in there. What we can do is, I think it's a rotary condensator. We have to set the input for this on the back. I don't know if this auto outputs, I don't think it does, so we are going to have to put that one block down. And I can't remember if it's a liquid. I think it is a liquid. Let's get a configurator. So that is currently going into the rotary condensator. Well, it will do if the fluids was on input, and it is. Interesting, why is that not working? You just need to put it in the decondensating mode, which is this toggle option right at the top here. So that will, with a bit of power, so if I give it creative cube right there, that will convert that into gaseous brine. Using the chemical crystallizer, the gaseous brine, when it's finished, will turn into salt. And you can use this salt with the chemical injection chamber to create sulfur dust. I personally think that this is a more accessible way of doing things, using coal, or in my case coal blocks, to create some sulfur dust. So with some oxygen, if you put the side config on the correct thing, so right now I've just put it on input and now that is filling up with oxygen, this will create some sulfur dust. This also creates some hydrogen, which I'm putting in here into the basic chemical tank in front of it, which is why in my list of stuff I've said 2 chemical tanks, one here and one there. This one's for our fissile fuel. Again, you can replace this with an entangler porter. But this one here, the hydrogen dumping excess, means that this will continuously run as long as it's got the 3 components that it needs. So it needs the coal blocks, or coal, it needs the fluorite, and it needs the uranium. And as usual, here is a slightly more compact version of it. So again, we've got a sink this time instead of the pump that we've got over here. The sink is supplying water to the electrolytic separator, which is feeding both the pressurized reaction chamber to make the sulfur dust, plus the chemical infuser to make, well, the oxygen for the sulfur trioxide, and everything else sort of links together. And right at the top here is where you get the uranium hexafluoride. That's going into an Entangler porter. I've got one for fissile fuel now, and that is how you can create some fissile fuel. So, thank you for watching. Thanks for joining. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.